They were high draft picks and were supposed to become superstars. But because of laziness, injuries, and incompetent coaches, they struggled and almost became busts. However, these are stories of players who overcame these early obstacles and became NBA legends. These are the NBA busts who saved their careers. During his senior season at Oregon State in 1990, Gary Payton was featured in the cover story of Sports Illustrated as the nation's best college player. GP was a consensus All-American, a three-time All-Pac-10 selection, and the Pac-10 Defensive Player of the Year. At the time of his graduation, Payton held the school record for points, field goals, three-point field goals, assists, and steals. And it was no surprise when the Seattle Supersonics drafted him second overall in the '90 NBA draft.
The Seattle Supersonics select Gary Payton from Oregon State.
All his life, Payton was the man. And when he came to the NBA, he was spoiled rotten. He thought the league would be easy and that he would dominate in the pros, like he did in college. I was struggling for the first 2 years because I had lost myself. I didn't think I needed to work out. I was mediocre, and Seattle wanted to trade me. Payton averaged just 8.3 points during his first 2 seasons. His attitude was awful, and he had all the signs of becoming a huge bust. But then, with the help of an assistant coach, Tim Gugrich, GP started watching film, spending time in the gym, adding muscle to his thin frame, and shooting thousands of shots during the offseason. And it made a world of difference. By year 4, Payton was averaging 16.5 points per game. He was one of the most efficient guards in the league, and arguably the best defender at his position. Between 1994 and 2003, GP averaged 21 points, 8 assists, and 2 steals per game, becoming the first point guard to win the Defensive Player of the Year award, along with 9 selections to all defensive teams and 9 All-NBA teams. And 1 year after Payton made the 1996 NBA Finals, another high-profile college point guard came to the NBA and struggled just like Payton. Chauncey Billups was the 3rd overall pick in 1997, selected by the Celtics. But due to his poor play, Boston traded him midway through his rookie season. In his first 4 seasons in the league, Billups had been traded 3 times, playing on 4 different teams. Chauncey averaged 11 points and 3.7 assists during that span, shooting a horrible 39% from the field. And it looked like he was going to end up a bust, who would be out of the league quickly.
Well, I just simply wasn't ready.
But then, in 2002, after the Timberwolves starting point guard Terrell Brandon got hurt, Billups took over the starting spot and never looked back. He averaged 14.4 points and 6.3 rebounds in 33 minutes as a starter. And in the first round of the playoffs against Dallas, he posted 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists per game, showing that he's one of those guys whose numbers improved in the playoffs. After his breakthrough season, Billups became a free agent, signing a contract with the Detroit Pistons, where he would become a legend. Under Chauncey's steady leadership, the Pistons made the conference finals for 6 consecutive years, including 2 trips to the finals, and that legendary NBA championship in 2004 when Detroit upset the Lakers, with Billups winning the finals MVP. During those playoff runs, Chauncey earned the nickname Mr. Big Shot because he always hit the biggest shots in the clutch, a total opposite of his early career. And this next player was also considered a bust, but for completely different reasons than Billups. Drafted 1st overall in 2005, the Australian center Andrew Bogut should have been one of the best players in the Milwaukee Bucks history, and their best big man since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. As a sophomore for the University of Utah, Bogut ranked 19th in the NCAA in scoring, 2nd in rebounding, and 8th in field goal percentage, and the Bucks thought that he'd continue to dominate in the NBA.
I think Andrew's going to be a better team defender.
And even though he was never a great scorer, averaging just 12 points in his first 4 seasons with Milwaukee, Bogut was a phenomenal defender, a great rebounder, and he had excellent court vision as one of those rare centers who could run plays and hit open cutters. In the 2010 season, Andrew had a breakout year, averaging 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game, which earned him the selection to the All-NBA 3rd team. But in one of the last games of the season, Bogut suffered a nasty fall, landing with all of his weight on top of his wrist, while his arm twisted as he landed. The next day, Bogut was diagnosed with a broken hand, dislocated elbow, and sprained wrist, in what was one of the worst on-court injuries in NBA history. And even though he bounced back in 2012 and was considered for the Defensive Player of the Year, multiple other injuries derailed his career. Across his first 7 seasons in the NBA, Bogut missed over 200 games, completely failing to meet the high expectations set by his spectacular college career. And so, the Bucks lost patience with him. And on March 13, 2012, Bogut and Steven Jackson were traded to the Golden State Warriors.
I'm so excited to continue my NBA career.
In exchange for Monte Ellis, Ekpe Udoh, and Kwame Kwame Brown, but he played his role to perfection. He was a defensive anchor and a great rebounder, averaging 8 rebounds in just 23 minutes per game. But even more importantly, Bogut was a great leader, with an immense contribution to the Warriors' title in 2015 and their record-breaking 73-9 season in 2016.
I wouldn't be half the defender I am without Andrew Bogut, and he taught me so much about defense that I owe all my success to him defensively.
And the player who almost got traded for Bogut when the Australian got dealt to the Warriors ultimately remained with Golden State. Even though the initial trade that would send Steph Curry to Milwaukee was already agreed on, it failed because of incompetent Bucks doctors who made the biggest mistake of their careers.
The Milwaukee doctors, who probably should be fired.
And to think of Steph Curry as a bust seems sacrilegious after his 4 championships and the title of the greatest shooter of all time. However, that's precisely what some fans called him during his early years, when ankle injuries were piling up, keeping him off the floor for extended time. Even when he was getting drafted, multiple analysts and fans doubted that Steph would ever amount to anything.
There are so many fans who dislike the Golden State Warriors so much.
And that Golden State was making a mistake for drafting him 7th overall in 2009. He was compared to Boobie Gibson, Kirk Snyder, and Adam Morrison, one of the biggest draft busts of the century. It's hard to even describe how much comments like that bugged me. All this analysis that people would put out there, all these scouting reports and whatever, that kept the focus on what I supposedly couldn't do. Steph. And even though Curry played well in his first couple of seasons, finishing second in Rookie of the Year voting and breaking the franchise record for three-pointers made in a season, his health and availability quickly became a problem. Steph underwent ankle surgery after the 2011 season, which caused him to miss 40 games of the 2012 season. And after he re-injured his ankle, the Warriors lost faith in him, offering Curry to Milwaukee in exchange for Andrew Bogut. But the Bucks doctors believed that his ankle problems were unsalvageable, nixing the trade, after which the Warriors included a fan favorite, Monte Ellis, in the deal for Bogut. The Warriors fans were livid, thinking that Ellis was a better player than Steph. And in the offseason, when Curry signed a $44 million extension with Golden State, a lot of people were thinking that it was a terrible decision for the Warriors. Many analysts were saying that he was a guard who couldn't pass or defend well, and that he had tissue paper ankles. While no media member called him a bust per se, the reaction of the fans and the Warriors' willingness to trade him in 2012 certainly made it look that way. But Curry wasn't the only player who got labeled a bust due to his injury struggles, only to win the league MVP several years later. When Joel Embiid got drafted by the 76ers in 2014, the Sixers already knew he would miss the majority of his rookie season due to a broken navicular bone in his foot. But what they didn't know is that Embiid would miss the entire 2015 season, and due to the complications with his recovery, that he'd miss the whole 2016 season as well. But when Embiid finally suited up, it was clear that he was the most talented player in his draft class. The big man from Cameroon averaged 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks in just 25 minutes per game, showcasing dominance on both ends of the floor. However, after just 31 games, Joel got hurt again, this time tearing the meniscus in his left knee. After he got ruled out for the season and only played 31 games in 3 years, the bust labels started to get thrown around. Embiid was supposed to become the next Hakeem Olajuwon, but he kept looking more like Sam Bowie. When he became an All-Star in 2018, Embiid talked about the tough times he had with injuries. With me missing my first 2 years, everyone calling me a bust and saying all this stuff about me, it's so much sweeter to actually be here now with all the All-Stars. However, while some players don't reach their full potential because of injuries, others fail due to franchises sabotaging their progress. Such was the case of Jalen Rose, who got famous in college as a member of the Fab Five, a squad that reached 2 NCAA finals. But when he got to the NBA, Rose was drafted 13th overall by the Denver Nuggets, who never really unlocked his full potential. Rose averaged 9 points and 5.5 assists per game in his first 2 seasons. But then the Nuggets traded him to Indiana, which nearly killed his career. Under coach Larry Brown, Rose often collected DNPs, playing just 18 minutes per game, while scoring just 7 points and 2 assists in his first season for the Pacers.
Larry Brown was trying to get me out of the league, but I did the opposite. I showed up early, I stayed late, I made sure I outworked everybody in practice.
However, after the 1997 season, Larry Brown left the team, and in his place came another Larry, who also happened to be one of the best players in NBA history. Bird saw a lot of potential in Rose and helped him revitalize his career.
Larry was the guy that helped validate me. My career needed to be refreshed.
In the next few seasons, Rose went from barely playing to becoming one of the best players on a team that reached the NBA Finals, also winning the Most Improved Player award that season. From 2000 until 2005, Jalen averaged 19.3 points, 4 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game, showcasing that great coaching and player development can often make the difference from being kicked out of the league to a 9-figure contract. Another team that parted ways too soon with a player selected in the lottery was the Cleveland Cavaliers, who drafted Kevin Johnson 7th overall in 1987. However, after just 52 games he played for the team, the Cavs traded Johnson to Phoenix, where KJ quickly showed the Cavaliers that they made a big mistake. After averaging only 9 points off the bench for Cleveland, playing behind Mark Price, Johnson averaged 12.6 points and 8.7 assists for Phoenix for the remainder of his rookie season. In his second year, KJ improved those numbers to 20.4 points and 12.12 assists, which was the third best mark in the league behind John Stockton and Magic Johnson. KJ won the Most Improved Player award. He made the second All-NBA team and finished 8th in MVP voting, just 1 year after the Cavs found him obsolete. Between 1989 and 1997, Johnson averaged 20 points and 10 assists per game, with 3 All-Star appearances, proving himself as one of the best point guards of the 90s, even though the Cavaliers thought he was going to be a bust. But there's another Johnson who got off to a slow start in the NBA and later became one of the best isolation scorers of all time. Just like Kevin, Joe Johnson got traded midway through his rookie season, replacing Boston with Phoenix. But even in his second season, Joe didn't show any signs of becoming a future superstar. Drafted 10th overall in 2001, Johnson averaged just 8.7 points per game in his first couple of seasons. But then he exploded. In his third year, Joe improved his average to 16.7 points, and over the next decade, he averaged 19 points and 4.5 assists, with 7 All-Star appearances. ISO Joe scored over 20,000 points in his career. But this next player was even better. Dirk Nowitzki came to the NBA in 1998 as the 9th overall pick. And even though he became an NBA legend and one of the 8 players in NBA history who scored over 30,000 points, early signs looked grim. As a rookie, Dirk wasn't accustomed to the physicality of the NBA. He couldn't guard anybody and struggled to score. Nowitzki averaged just 8 points and 3 rebounds per game, shooting 40% from the field and 20% from 3. At one point, Nowitzki even contemplated quitting the NBA and returning to Germany, as he thought he was never going to be good enough to compete in the best league in the world. I was up and down, one good game, then one terrible game. I started the season in the starting 5, but I was lost every game. I was horrible. But in his second season, Dirk improved significantly, averaging 17 points per game, and by year 3, he had already made an All-NBA team, a feat that he would accomplish for 12 consecutive years. And around that same time, another talented power forward was struggling to get his NBA career on the right track. Drafted 17th overall in 1996, a 6'11" Jermaine O'Neal came to the NBA straight out of high school, and he didn't play much. But unlike Dirk, he didn't get an opportunity to showcase his talent, playing on the deep Portland team that had an all-star power forward, Rasheed Wallace, and strong as an ox Gary Trent playing in front of O'Neal. During his first 4 seasons, Jermaine averaged only 11 minutes, scoring just 4 points per game, and it looked like he could be out of the league. But then he got traded to Indiana, where he quickly blossomed into an all-star. In his second season with the Pacers, O'Neal averaged 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game, which won him the Most Improved Player award and the selection to the All-NBA third team. Between 2002 and 2007, J.O. made 6 consecutive All-Star games, averaging 20, 10, and 2.5 blocks. And this next player was part of the best draft in NBA history, but he was never projected to become one of the best point guards of all time. When he got drafted 15th overall by the Suns in 1996,
well, I want to thank Santa Clara, St. Michael's High School, Arbutus Junior High, all my coaches, my family, and my friends. They've done a lot for me along the way, and I couldn't have done it without any of them.
many people thought that Steve Nash would never amount to anything, and that Phoenix wasted their pick. Nash was small, he was skinny, and he was Canadian, back when Canada was only known for hockey. And at first, the naysayers were right. Nash only averaged 6 points and 3 assists per game in his first couple of seasons, after which the Suns shipped him to Dallas. And with the Mavericks, Steve didn't fare much better, averaging only 8 points, 5 assists, and shooting 42% from the field in his first 2 seasons in Dallas. But then, in year 5, things finally improved, as Nash thrived next to Dirk Nowitzki and Michael Finley, averaging 15.6 points and 7.3 assists per game in a breakout season. Next year, he was an all-star, and by the time he he retired, he'd won 2 MVPs, led the league in assists 5 times, and is the all-time leader in 50, 40, 90 seasons, with 4 such accomplishments. Nash did all that at arguably the most challenging position in the NBA, but playing center can be equally hard to master, especially if you come to the NBA directly from high school. That was the path of the second pick in the 2001 NBA draft, Tyson Chandler.
Went through all my interviews talking about I'm gonna love to be a Clipper. I get to the phone and you're a Chicago Bull now.
Who turned pro after averaging 26 points, 15 rebounds, and 8 blocks a game as a high school senior. But when he had to bang with the big boys such as Shaq and Dikembe Mutombo, Chandler quickly realized that the NBA is a whole different animal. The Bulls center struggled early on, averaging just 7 points and 7 rebounds per game in his first 5 seasons in the league. Still fairly skinny and struggling with injuries, Chandler never developed into the defensive stopper and low-post scorer that the Bulls imagined when they drafted him second overall. In a deep draft class with Pau Gasol, Jason Richardson, Zach Randolph, Gilbert Arenas, and Tony Parker, Chandler started in less than 50% of the games for Chicago. And so in 2006, they traded him to New Orleans. Playing with Chris Paul and later with Jason Kidd in Dallas, Chandler developed into one of the best rebounders, defenders, and lob threats in the NBA, averaging a double-double for the next 9 seasons. While he was never much of a scorer, he won Defensive Player of the Year, made an All-Star team, and most importantly, he was a key player on Dallas's 2011 championship run. Now, this next player is still active, and he averaged over 20 points per game for the last 10 seasons, and yet he never made an All-Star team and will never get into the Hall of Fame. It's CJ McCollum, the 10th pick of the 2013 NBA draft, who never looked like he'd be a dominant scorer for one season, let alone for an entire decade. The biggest problem for McCollum is that he's a tweener, a shooting guard in a point guard's body, with a small frame that presents difficulties on the defensive end. In his first 2 seasons with Portland, CJ averaged just 6 points per game, as he was too thin to play meaningful minutes on a contending team. But then, in his 3rd season, McCollum exploded and resurrected his career. He averaged 20.8 points and 4.3 assists per game, hitting 42% of his threes, which earned him the Most Improved Player award. Over the next decade, CJ established himself as one of the craftiest scorers in the league. And even though he never made an All-Star team, he went from a possible bust to one of the best scorers in NBA history. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, we have another one for you right here.